We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Saturday, and so often the case, we have Ed with us today. We've got a lot of guests as of late, and it's always good to see Ed back. And we were just talking before we started this and said, wow, what are we going to talk about? Nothing happens. It seems like one week passes and the world completely changes. And that's essentially what happened.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when we talked last, I didn't bring this up because it seemed far-fetched to me at the time. I have a friend who she's an actress and she also writes articles for major magazines and stuff. So she's pretty well connected. And she was the only one I saw. She put up what I'm hearing is this was like on a Wednesday, right? What I'm hearing is that Joe is going to abdicate on Sunday and named Kamala and endorsed Kamala. And I thought, coming from you, I have to consider that. But at the same time, this seems unlikely because of everything we were hearing at that time from the Biden campaign.
Right.
Was that he's in it to win it, he's going to stay and so forth. But this was there. And sure enough, it played out exactly as was said. So I'm gonna keep checking out her webpage and see what pops up because she's obviously got some inside track on this, right?
Well, I had a lot of people come to my page, and you and I both were stringent about keeping Joe on the ticket because going someplace else seemed like to be a big risk. And people will come to me and say, "Well, see, it's fine now. They went with Kamala." And you were wrong. And I said, well, we weren't wrong in the sense that we didn't know whether he would step aside. Ed and I both did say it's got to be Kamala, but we knew that they were trying to skip over her, which I thought would have been disastrous.
Right.
But the moment you heard Joe stepped aside, what was your immediate thought? Because everybody I saw was sad and crying and upset.
Not me. The minute he immediately endorsed Kamala, and I checked my feed and I saw the reaction, I said this was the right move. People don't have to reorient. They don't have to, weigh Newsom against Bashir. They don't have to do any of the. There's no infighting. There's no sound bites to be used against one another and so forth. People just need to step up, get behind Kamala, and go for it. And that's what I was seeing. So I was very pleased by it. I was saddened that Joe would not be able to finish it, but at the same time, there was a profound sense of relief because after the COVID diagnosis, I thought, okay, he's going to have to reevaluate. He already said that it basically gave him an out because he said if there's a health change or something like that, I would step down. And he had looked rather
frail, yeah,
frail, much more so than in the last campaign. And whereas I think he is perfectly up to governing, finishing out his term, and probably would have been up to governing for another 4 years. Because governing is policy. You just stick with policy, right? You're not out campaigning every day. And it's even on a young person, campaigning every day is insane. I mean, it is I think that we're going to see Kamala glorying in this. We already are. And we're going to see Trump being the aged crap that he is. I mean, he's just going to keep falling down.
The thing about it is that I've always said Joe may be slow, he may stutter, he may be looking frail, but there's nobody in Washington, D.C. that has more experience than he does, and nobody smarter and craftier than he is. And the fact of the matter is, as we saw this play out, I didn't know it while it was going on, but as I look back at it, to use a term that you probably use down in Tennessee, I think Joe was playing a little possum. And this whole process was calculated to come out after the convention and say, oh, by the way, I'm not running. And then I endorse Kamala. And I think him endorsing Kamala was the key to this whole fucking thing working. Because
I do.
he basically said to all the people that said, want me to step aside so you can bring in some other clown, I'm going to make it so you can't. I'm going to endorse Kamala. And that put everybody in a weird position that wanted to jump over Kamala, especially when this fucking ball started rolling.
Yeah, and I think the savvy people, the Newsoms, the Beshears, the Tim Walzes, realize this is not the time for them to step in.
No.
They will eventually, but they will eventually run, probably all of them, for president in 8 years, or barring. I do think Kamala can easily do 8 years, and I hope that
Oh,
she
yeah.
does. The thing I always liked about Joe is that people who tune into this podcast have probably figured out by now that I'm most comfortable as a democratic socialist. I don't really peg myself, but me and Bernie, me and Elizabeth Warren, we're all in the same camp. And Joe was what they call a centrist, right?
Right.
But when Joe became president, Joe moved to the left, and I respected him very much for that. After spending all of his time getting elected as a centrist, that showed me he understood that that's where you had to be to get elected to a certain extent. But at the same time, his heart was really in Roosevelt territory. So he won me over once he started to govern, and with the things he did. And we saw the outcome. We saw the country come back. We saw inflation come down. We saw the stock market go crazy. All that, to me, that is not the indicator that people think it is or should think it is. I mean, it's great that my 401k keeps going through the roof, but at the same time, that's I think all the stocks are owned by 1% of the people or something, they tell
Right.
me. So that's not really indicative of how the country is doing, everybody. And when Kamala speaks, I see her speaking for everybody. When Donald Trump speaks, I see him speaking for himself.
Right. Right. I don't think anybody could have foreseen the amount of support for Kamala Harris. People are saying, well, in 2019, she didn't get much support when she was running against Joe. First of all, she was running against Joe. Second of all, it was a much different world. And I think that's what people have to understand. You can't compare 2016 or even 2020 because we live in
No.
an entirely different world. In 2020, we had George Floyd and a lot of things where the police were getting a lot of heat. She was made out to be a tough prosecutor, and that worked against her. Now, when she's going up against a felon, it's working for her. And that's the
Yeah.
big difference between where Kamala was in 2019 and where she is now. Plus, she's got 3.5, 4 years of being vice president under her belt. She's the absolute best choice.
Also, she can, I don't know if you've watched any of her speeches. Um, this is a woman, if she's using a teleprompter, you can't tell it. She
Right.
seems to be speaking off the cuff, and she speaks very well, as opposed to Trump, who's just stream of consciousness lies and bullshit. And people can tell, people, rational people, his
Right.
base don't care. But rational people see that difference. They see a vitality in her, and they see she has command of the facts. I think it was North Carolina. Trump had a speech where he vilified her, and everything he said was false and easily verifiably false.
Right.
So that's all he's got is lies, and lies will only take you so far because ultimately the media has to start saying, well, that's a lie. That's a lie. And I'm seeing that already. And I'm seeing that not just from the usual, not just from MSNBC, I'm seeing it on CNN. And really the prosecutor versus the felon is really resonating, and the whole cat lady thing is backfiring big time, and that is
Not to
I
mention
think.
having sex with a couch. That's gone awry too.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the other one, and this actually comes from his book where he talks about having a big party where he wakes up with an M&M Minis case shoved halfway up his butt.
Wow.
I mean, this is in the book. This is,
Wow.
they are quoting him here. And if you've read the book, you realize that, you know, he comes from a very dysfunctional family where there were a lot of drugs and alcohol and so forth. And who of us hasn't woken up? I'm kidding.
In
No,
my in my
nobody has.
in my day, it was Pablo Cruz, but yeah, I get the point. I get the point.
Yeah, yeah. So at any rate,
Well, one of the things I think is important here, and one of the things that benefited Donald Trump, because he was the shit show, and because he constantly said stupid stuff, he became the media darling. And when I say that, I mean he became kind of focused because he brought attention. And
yeah,
now all the attention that he's garnered has gotten old. It's stale right now. And now, where I think the big difference between going toward this election is now Kamala is the media darling. They love Kamala. They love the story. They love the support. And now the media is just doing what they do. They go wherever the fucking excitement's at, and it happens to be at Kamala. So now Donald Trump is going to get hit, like say Joe Biden or some other people did, and they're focusing on Kamala. That's why it's so important to keep the excitement and the momentum moving.
yeah. And people who love Lucille Ball won't like this, but I have to liken Trump unto Lucille Ball in the arc of Lucille Ball. You had I Love Lucy, gigantic hit.
Yeah,
Everybody watched it. It became an icon. We watched it over and over and over again as kids. And then they expanded it to an hour and moved to the country, and they had all these fabulous guest stars and everything, and it was even better. And then she and Ricky broke up, and it was just her and Ethel raising kids and so forth. And then finally there was the last Lucy show, which lasted about 3 weeks and was pathetic
right,
because she had outlived her relevance. She
right.
was just this figure they thought they could get some people to watch, and they didn't invest anything in writing or anything. It was just, oh, here's Lucy, and it wasn't funny. It was pathetic. And we all kind of winced and turned the channel, right? This is where Trump is now. I could just as easily have used Bob Hope, by the way, who had great movies with the road movies and so forth. And then gradually he just became very unfunny. And he had those pathetic TV specials where he would just stand on stage and welcome some other comedians. They'd do some lame sketches and then go home and he'd cash his check.
Right.
So that's the arc of Donald Trump. He is no longer relevant. He no longer pulls people just because he says outrageous things, because everything he says is outrageous, but now they don't make sense. I don't
No.
know if you saw the one where he's trying to justify the thing about, the electric boat and the shark and so forth,
Yeah.
and then he gets into some kind of snake thing that nobody knows what the hell he's talking about. That's where Trump is now. He's babbling. He's a babbler. He's around the bend, and
Well,
it boggles my mind that there are people, that the Republican Party is still supporting this guy, and now they've got J.D. Vance to contend with as well. With everything he says, labels him as a fool and an idiot. We can talk about his children thing in a minute, but
yeah.
I'll throw it back to you because I've talked too much.
Well, everything about Donald Trump and his style of doing things counts on momentum because he has no
Right,
substance. So
right,
he he
none.
he makes a lot of noise. He rolls over the top of people. But with every person who does that, there is an expiration date. It can only
Yeah,
last so long, and we've come to that point. He's now losing momentum. Kamala is gaining momentum every minute, and he's getting run over. I mean, like you say, your time of relevance has an end date, and Donald Trump's relevance date is over. And Kamala
well,
Harris is helping to make that happen.
a perfect metaphor was Hulk Hogan at the Republican National Convention when this feeble-looking old man rips a shirt and tries to build on that persona he used to have, which was fake even then.
Yeah.
And it just screamed fake, fake, fake. And it also, for me, was the perfect metaphor for Trump himself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, he had Kid Rock show up
Yeah,
at his convention, and Kamala got the okay, actually got the okay to use Beyonce's Freedom on her
Right.
commercials and in her events and stuff. And that tells you a lot. That tells you
Yeah.
a freaking lot.
Well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, look who came out with the cat lady right away, backing her. You had, um, oh, come on.
Jennifer Aniston,
Well, her too, but the singer, the number one singer in the whole world, blonde young lady, tours everywhere.
Taylor,
Um,
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, yes, thank you. They immediately come back, push back on this. They're both childless. They're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. They're doing
uh,
really well. And I think, you talked about JD Vance and we might as well talk about the vice presidential thing.
yeah,
There are 8 candidates, we guess, that Kamala can choose from. And there are reasons to pick one over the other, but they're all pretty good candidates. And given the momentum and the force of nature she is, I don't know that she can make a wrong choice. She can make the best choice, whatever that may be. And it's something I can't discern, but she's got a lot of great choices. And I don't think she can do what Donald Trump did because we know Donald Trump made the absolute worst choice. So this is another
yeah.
plus for Kamala. She can't lose in this one, and Donald Trump already has.
Well, I'll tell you who I'm pulling for and why. I'm pulling for Governor Bashir from
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Kentucky. He's a lesser known commodity, so he won't overshadow her
Right.
at all. I like Mark Kelly very much, but he's an astronaut. He's a, I think she needs somebody who's lesser known, but the main thing is that he is from Kentucky. He can wipe the floor with J.D. Vance, who is a fake Kentuckian. He's from Ohio. I mean, he may have spent a little time as a kid in Kentucky, but he's not a Kentuckian. He's
Right.
an Ohioan. And Bashir is the real thing. And he knows what it's like in Kentucky. And he knows that J.D. Vance's policies that he can speak to are the thing that people in Kentucky don't need. I mean, the people of Kentucky have been exploited by corporations, particularly coal miners and so forth, or coal mines, coal companies, for 100 years and more. They have been, they were essentially slave labor kept in these small towns where they weren't even paid in money, but in company script that they had to spend in the company stores. I mean, you don't get money. It's apartheid for white people in
Right.
Kentucky.
Right.
That's exactly what it was, and this is the kind of thing that J.D. Vance would be just fine with. The other thing is he keeps harping on this child thing, where he says people with children should pay less taxes. Guess what? They already do. People with children get a tax deduction for each child.
Right.
Childless people pay more in taxes. And we pay for your kids to go to school. Our taxes go to support the public schools, even though we don't have kids in school. Why should we care? We care because we want an educated populace. That's why. The other thing, when we worked together at the radio station, we could get health care through our employer.
Right.
Um, so we could both get a family plan. That was me and my wife.
Right.
We had a coworker who had something like 4 or 5 kids. I was paying for 2 of those kids because we paid the same.
Right.
He had 4 or 5 kids. I had a wife, but I paid the same thing he did. So I was paying for some of his kids. So childless couples pay more already than people with children do. And I don't have any animosity for that. I want children to have health care. I want them to be able to go to school. I want them to have food. I want to support SNAP and all early childhood education and everything that goes to making better citizens. I want that.
I've been going back and forth about the VP choice too, and I'm kind of leaning toward Bashir too for one reason. Um, there's all kinds of reasons. Is it going to get me Pennsylvania? Is it going to get me Arizona? Mark Kelly lives in a border
Sure.
state. That's helpful because he has some different ideas about border stuff and he's more centrist. I'm cool with that. But I think the one thing that they really need to focus on more than anything, because I think it's the most important issue, it's been interesting to see how much young people have supported Kamala.
Absolutely.
Young people have huge numbers, and they are going to be the difference in 2024 and certainly in 2028. You need to have a vice presidential candidate that young people will like. I think that's the most important thing. And I think Bashir, because he's in his mid 40s and he's got that young look, and he's not taking any shit either. He's going after JD Vance and Donald Trump all the time. He might be a good choice because I think he would appeal the most to young people.
You're right, and I identify with that because I worked with young people for so long. I identify with them anyway, but it always ticked me off as a boomer, and I don't know if it did you or not, but people forget our first boomer president was Bill Clinton.
Right. Right.
Before that, it was always, quote, greatest generation people, and even after Clinton, I mean, there was some of that, but Clinton and George Bush were both boomers, certainly. So we finally got them, but I was, deep into my 60s when Clinton came along.
Right.
So I think I remember when Kennedy was elected. Now, I was part of a Republican family here in East Tennessee who was very virulently against Kennedy, but not me. I thought this is so great that this younger guy, and what was he, 43 or something at the time? I don't
Yeah, he
remember,
was young.
but he seemed young and vital. We know he wasn't quite so vital. He was, had a lot of health problems, but at the same time, it made me feel like that I was connected to the presidency, whereas Ike was like my grandfather. And then Nixon was like the uncle that I didn't want to associate with. It was, and it wasn't until Clinton came along that I felt like my generation was finally really represented, even though he claimed not to inhale.
The interesting thing is Joe Biden is not a boomer.
No,
He was born in
no,
1942. Boomers are 46 to 64. He is not a boomer.
exactly.
He's of
No,
the previous generation. He's about the same age as my folks would have been had they lived. And so, with the choice, I all I know is Kamala and all the people around here are doing all the right things, and I got to
yes.
trust that whoever they pick as a vice president going to be the right thing. Donald Trump,
Yeah,
on the other hand, he doesn't deal with substance. He deals with
no.
perception and looks and ratings. And he was convinced that this is a young guy. He's a good speaker. He'll look good on camera. And apparently, they didn't vet this motherfucker because Donald Trump
No.
doesn't do any vetting or anything. He just goes with his gut. And every time he does, he seems to fuck up. And he most certainly fucked up with picking JD Vance.
Yeah, I can't believe that nobody in the Republican Party bothered to read the book. I guess I can because I don't believe Republicans actually read.
No, I don't
They
think
want
so.
to they want to ban books. They don't, they want to keep people from reading, but I don't think they actually do read. I think the whole I'm sure there are some, maybe Republican older ladies who like to read cozy mysteries or something like that. That may be the case, but by and large, I don't think that Republicans actually read. And if they do, it's fluff or it's Clancy novels or
Or
something like
porn.
that, or porn. Yeah. Well, we know they crash Grinder, right?
Yeah, they
So
crash grinder. So now what does Donald Trump do? I mean, he's constantly making poor choices. And I've said before, Donald Trump is the absolute worst presidential candidate from a major party in the history of this country.
oh,
But that,
absolutely.
and now we can virtually say that JD Vance is the worst vice presidential nominee in the history of this country. How do
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
there's a pair to draw to. How do they fucking win? They can't.
Yeah, and I think this may be the most black and white, to use a metaphor that's probably not apt. I don't mean it in the sense of race, but uh, presidential contest ever. On the one side, you have Kamala and whoever her roommate or her running mate is, who are representing the light. And then you have Trump and Vance, who are the dark side. I mean, we're talking Star Wars country here.
Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
got Luke and Layla, or Layla and Luke, I guess it will be eventually, versus Darth Vader and who's
Darth
the other
Jr.
Vader? Yeah,
I don't know.
Darth Maul. Darth
Darth
Maul.
Maul.
That's
Yeah.
the other one. You know, there. That's what we got here. Just to put it in a younger generation. So that's not even young anymore. You know?
Well,
That's,
everybody's talking about the debate, and there's supposed to be a debate scheduled on September 10th. Now, Donald Trump says, "Oh, I'd be happy to debate her multiple times." What about September
uh,
10th? There's a lot of confusion. Let's wait until she gets nominated. She's got enough delegates and then some to be nominated.
yes.
Let's. Well, and the fact of the matter is she'll be nominated in August anyway, so September 10th should be fine.
Yeah, and what is this bullshit coming from Johnson and all and these Republicans about litigation and suing because
That is
because
almost pathetic. That's
it is
pathetic.
pathetic, is what it is. Who you don't have standing? Who are you going to sue? What are you suing for? You know, I think it's just they're grasping at straws, trying to. It's just insane.
They're just
You
trying to
know,
message something like they're doing something. I mean, the thing about it is you can't go to the DOJ about this because this is the rules of the Democratic Party. They
right?
dictate what can be done and what can't be done. They might try
Exactly.
to say, well, the ballot's this. Well, we don't have a nominee yet. If we had a nominee, then I could
Yeah.
see you might have a complaint. What they're mad about is Donald or Joe Biden played those motherfuckers at their
Yeah.
own game and beat their ass again.
Yeah. He waited till after the convention where they had spent Boku bucks maligning him, fighting him, invested in probably millions of dollars of merchandise, maligning him, and now it's all worthless.
Yeah, it's all worthless. And the thing about it is for as old and decrepit as they say Joe is a wily motherfucker, and
Yes.
and he, they're nervous about him too because right now
Yeah.
Joe Biden's a dangerous motherfucker too. I mean, as much as they think he can't complete a sentence, he's in an interesting position. He can do virtually anything he wants between now and January 20th, and
Mhm.
not hurt Kamala and not give a shit about himself. And then you throw in that little thing of you immunity, and he makes them nervous at this point, as well he should.
Well, and this is your point is well taken. Joe can write all of the executive orders he wants,
Yeah,
and they don't have to stick. But the Republicans have to fight them. They have to comment on them. And he could do an executive order that where they have to step up and say we want to eliminate school lunches or Social Security or whatever. He can do executive orders that will make them have to comment and go on record, and he can just keep right on doing that.
right. Well, and the other thing too is people will say to me, "Well, he's got immunity, but Joe would never do anything bad," and I agree with that.
No,
However, you got to think like a Republican and look ahead, and you got to think about Joe Biden too. Would he do something that is considered wrong? No, except now keep in mind, everybody says they're going to cheat like they did in 2020. But Donald Trump was president in 2020. Joe
right.
Biden is president. If they start fucking around prior to the election or January 6th, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden overstepped his bounds because he's got immunity and shut
Sure.
those motherfuckers down. And I know the Republicans are thinking about that.
Oh yeah. I mean, and he can do that. I mean, he has control of
I think he
a
will
lot of
do that.
things. I think he will too, and I'm hoping that they already have plans in place for doing that.
Well, and
For
that's why they're saying, "Oh, Joe's got to step down. He's not capable of being president. He's been the most successful president in the history of the country in the last 3.5 years. He can't ride out another 6 months. That's ridiculous. They're scared of Joe Biden, and that's the wonderful thing that Joe Biden did prior to stepping aside. He was considered weak. He was considered decrepit. The party seemed to be slipping in the polls, with one move, two moves. He stepped aside, he endorsed Kamala, he turned himself into the legendary status he needs. He's somebody that's beloved and that is supported, and he handed the baton to Kamala, and she took off like a fucking rocket. He did it
Yes.
masterfully, and if anybody tells me it was just luck, that's bullshit.
It is bullshit. I don't think Joe ever counted on luck at all in his whole life. I think he
Here's a
spent
guy that
enough.
didn't have much luck.
Right, and this is an argument against term limits. In my, you want people who have been there long enough to get things done, to know, to have connections with the other side. You've done them a favor. It's time for payback, bitch. You know, I mean, this does go on. You have to know how to play the game. I got to throw this in real quick. There's something really amusing going on in Tennessee right now, at least where I live. You have two guys running for state senator. One of them is Bobby Harshbarger. He is actually the son of the current congressional representative from this district, Diane Harshbarger, who's a waste of space. Okay, she's a backbencher who all she does is vote how she's told to vote. Her husband's in prison for selling bogus drugs to the VA. She was part of the same company, and given his age and so forth, I'm sure Bobby was involved as well. So they're a crime family who somehow or other managed to get into Congress, right? Now, he's running for state senator against a fellow Republican who Lundberg is his name. He's been in there a long time. He's a 30-year Navy veteran, small business owner, and so forth. And although he is just as right wing as they are, they're calling him a liberal. The liberal John Lundberg, they call him. So they have these competing commercials, and all either of them can say is, "I like Trump." Harshbarger is actually endorsed by Trump, okay, but they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on this state senator race, and they talk about it like it's congressional, like he's going to go to Congress and help Trump somehow. And the things they talk about, the big ones are protecting girls' sports, keeping men out of women's restrooms, the Second Amendment, of course, protecting our Second Amendment. Those are the big ones.
Yeah, those are the big
This
ones.
is this is the big one, and this is what everybody in Tennessee is concerned about, right?
Yeah.
So it's incredible bullshit. It's almost amusing, except for the fact it leaves me with no one to vote for, because Democrats don't run around here anymore because it's so gerrymandered. There's no point to it, and the National Party won't put any money into a run because once again, there's no it's gerrymandered. It's not going to change. East Tennessee is going to be Republican
So in
until.
East Tennessee, we've said before, and the concerns about the Republican Party dying off and the Democrats taking power. That sounds good to Democrats. But if you don't have two parties, you really don't have democracy. And it sounds like in East Tennessee, you don't have democracy.
No, you don't, and people don't understand that when you allow one party government, they are not going to be responsive to you. They could give a shit what you need. They're going to be responsive to themselves or to their masters, whoever
Yeah, they're
that may
locked in.
be. And you can see that now. For example, there's a bridge here that needs to be replaced. It's going to take $1.5 million to upgrade it. It should really be. Uh, and the county has to come up with that money, even though Joe Biden sent millions of dollars to Tennessee specifically for bridges. But that money is being siphoned off, they're used in other ways, and it's not going to be. So I'm going to help pay for that $1.5 million to fix that
Right.
to fix that bridge because the Republican Party is not interested in doing anything like that. It actually benefits people, right? No,
Well,
they're
and
not interested in that.
as a retired old white guy, that's why you're considering the fact of the possibility of moving out of Tennessee, even though that's your home state.
Yeah, well, when I moved back here, I knew it was a Republican area, but when I was here before, it was the Republican Party of Howard Baker, for
Right.
example, and it was
Well, it's not even the
The
Republican Party anymore.
no, no, it's not the. See, remember the Republican Party, when the Republican Party started in Tennessee, they were the liberals. I mean, it was
right,
the party of Lincoln. This was during the Civil War when
right.
the East Tennessee stayed with the Union. My great 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 grandfather fought for the Union. We did not consider ourselves Southerners, and now, of course, that's all changed around, and you see rebel flags everywhere and all of that bullshit because people are stupid and they don't know their history. They don't understand that they were actually on the side of the North,
Yeah.
their ancestors, and how stupid that is. This was a Democratic state and a Democratic town when I was a kid.
Wow. And you're thinking of coming back north with the
Yeah.
Yankees here in Minnesota?
Well, at least halfway. I mean, halftime.
Oh, okay. So you might keep a place in Tennessee?
Yeah, we're looking at Gatlinburg for a place, and also in probably St. Paul.
A beautiful area, Gatlinburg. I haven't been there. My brother's been there, and I know people have. It is a beautiful place. And the fact of the matter is I think we're at a turning point in this country, and I think after the election, there's going to be a lot of different attitudes, different changes. The cult of Donald Trump will go by the wayside, and you still may not agree with Republicans, but they're going to be shuffling around trying to rebuild something after Donald Trump tore it down. So you might be okay in Tennessee after we get past November.
Well, we'll see here. See, my wife doesn't feel safe here anymore. I'm
Really?
just, I'm just an ornery old white guy, and I carry my cane with me and my pepper spray and all of that, and I don't worry too much about it. But there's crazies here. There are, and we've seen indications of what can happen when a rumor gets started. And I'm fairly well pegged as being liberal, so it does make me nervous to an extent
Wow.
uh, going in. So yeah, I mean that's why I wouldn't be here, but I still want to be close, have a place close to family.
Are you
Also,
better off in a bigger town? Are they tend to be more blue, or is that still a problem?
if you get to Nashville and beyond, you're fine.
Okay.
There's plenty of blue out that way. It's just East Tennessee that is solid red. I think it was 72% for Trump the last election.
Wow. That's
And
that's
there are no Democrats running for the state senate or representative race. They know it's pointless. There is a woman who is challenging the senator, one of the woman senator from Tennessee, and there's a possibility if Trump goes down, I think she might too. I think there could be if Trump goes down, I think there could be a turnaround because if Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee combine, then East Tennessee would not be a factor.
right.
They could turn the state blue again.
Well, that's good.
The trouble, we've had a lot of people moving into the state, and many of them do tend to be right wing. So it's hard to know. It's hard
It's
to know.
Well, Ed, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back. We got plenty of other stuff to talk about. So we'll take a quick break here and we'll be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Ed joins us today. Always a pleasure to have Ed and get his insights. I always like getting insights from an older man, which is saying something when you're as old as me. Um, but in this campaign for Kamala, money is a big issue because Republicans are involved, and the Republicans were scared to death about the prospect of her having a $90 million cache of money taken from what Joe Biden had left over, and they tried to do everything they could or they're trying to do everything they can so she can't get her hands on it. Like it's not fair. It's not fair. It's because of this and because it's become a moot point now because she's raised herself 300 million and they can't keep her away from that. It's just laughable. The things they're fighting for, nothing works for them.
No. and that would never have flown anyway. The money was
No,
given to the campaign, not
right.
to Joe Biden. The delegates, as you've already pointed out, she already has enough delegates to be named the candidate. They'll do a voice vote on what, Thursday or something,
Yeah.
a Zoom vote or whatever, and then that will all be moot. I mean, and then at the convention they will, do the stamp of approval on it. It's all said and done. She will eventually get that money too, but it's beginning to look like she's going to raise all she needs anyway, because I think it's beginning to dawn on people. I mean, first it was, will Joe leave? And now it's Kamala's here, and people are losing sight of Project 2025. We need to get focused on that again.
Right.
And while it will do, this is not a contest between a Republican and a Democrat. This is a contest between a Democrat and an authoritarian who
Right.
wants to change everything about the country, who wants to cancel Social Security, who wants to cancel Medicare, who wants to take away all regulations that affect businesses in any way. Right now in Texas, SpaceX is suing the National Labor Relations Board and trying to get a block there from them working on unionizing or keeping him from using rotten tactics to
Right.
prevent union building, for example. And they want to do this with every regulation, that everything that was done during Roosevelt and post Roosevelt in the 20th century that leveled the playing field for working Americans versus corporations and so forth, between you and me and polluters and so forth. They want to do away with all of that. That's what Trump represents. Trump represents a march to the past where the working man and woman was barely a slave, just barely above slavery, and really only in name, not in fact, because they would be in areas where if there's only one place to work, then
Well,
you have very little choice.
I think Kamala understands that completely, and I think one of the
Yeah,
reason why people feel better now, I've said it before. Donald Trump and Joe Biden don't match up in personalities. Donald Trump is loud, obnoxious, a liar, and kind of a fighter. Joe's never been a fighter. He's more
no,
tactical, more strategic, more about the facts and the data, and that just does not match up. That's one of the reasons why it went so poorly during the
yeah,
debate. Kamala, on the other hand, they see her as a warrior, a fighter, somebody who's
yeah,
going to push back and fight back and throw some punches against a bully. And she's doing a good job of messaging. If you've seen some of her releases, her printed releases, they all start out referring to him as the 78-year-old criminal.
yes.
And they keep punching that information, the 2025, all the other things. So I think Kamala and her team understand what needs to be done, and we all have to pay attention to that. It's a nice honeymoon period where we're all excited about Kamala, but we still got to keep putting the message out, like you said, that this is a fucking horrible thing. If Donald Trump gets elected, we're better off with Kamala, and we can't just ride the wave of this euphoria for the next 3 months. We've got to get down to brass tacks, and I think Kamala understands that, and I think she is doing that every time she talks.
I think so too, and I think she's a great candidate in her own right. Um, but also, I think she has the backing now of the entire Democratic Party. I'm sure you saw that Barack Obama and his
I did.
and
Michelle.
Michelle actually went ahead and endorsed her,
Right.
as many of the other movers and shakers in the party have. That's important. It's important that they did that, and they have to keep doing it. There can be no dissension in the ranks allowed at all in the ranks. No dissension. There
No.
can be no Joe Manchin.
Right.
They need to take Joe to the side and say, keep your mouth shut.
Well, I think there was a
Uh,
lot of people that might have pushed back against Kamala. Because I'll be honest with you, the
mhm,
amount of excitement around Kamala, that surprised me. I liked her. I thought she'd be a good
mhm.
president, but I never knew there would be this much excitement. I think it's kind of a relief. Finally, we have
It
somebody
is.
to fight back. The
Yeah.
difference between now, I always had hope with Joe, but a lot of people didn't. They didn't see it. They needed somebody to fight, and now everybody's got hope. So I think there were a lot of people that probably wouldn't have backed Kamala if not for the momentum.
Yes.
Like I said, it's a big rock rolling down the hill. You either get out of the way, get on board, or get fucking run over. And I think the likes of Schumer and Pelosi and George Clooney and Barack and Michelle, they saw what was coming. They better get
Yeah.
on this train because they're comparing it to Obama in 2008. A lot of
Yeah.
people are saying it's bigger than
It's
2008.
bigger.
It's
It's
bigger.
bigger. And I mean, Obama was huge. We
Yeah,
know that. But people forget, I think, that at least half the population, it's probably more than that, are women.
right.
And that is a huge identification factor. And this is an accomplished woman. This is a woman who stands up, and this is a woman who can win, and everybody knows it. And it will bring a whole new vibe to government when
Yeah,
that happens. To have a woman
absolutely.
at the Resolute desk will be something that has never ever happened before. In the same way that a black man at the Resolute desk had never happened before. And this is a woman who's not only a woman, but she represents two distinct minorities as well. So this is more than a trifecta. This is something. This is a person whose time has come.
Yeah,
And I do, as you say, it is a huge boulder rolling down the hill, and those who try to get in the way will be swept aside or crushed beneath it.
right.
So I think that you will see people that would have been vilifying Joe to high heaven on the Republican side who are going to suddenly just go silent.
You know, a
They're
lot
going
of
to
people
step back.
a lot of people worried about her being a person of color and being a woman. But I think a couple things are working in her favor because we had Barack Obama and because the way the country, and I'm talking about Democrats, people that would support democracy as opposed to the Republicans. The Republicans want to distinguish that she's black or South Asian. I think to the vast majority of people after going through Barack Obama and all that's been going on, I don't think people really care she's black or South Asian. I don't think that's an issue. And the fact that
No.
she's a woman might have worked against Hillary, but I think this is a war against women, and women are finally saying, yeah, let's get a strong woman and beat these motherfuckers. I think her being a woman is a strength, not a drawback.
Right. I mean, we are an outlier on the world stage for never having had a woman. I
Right.
mean, so it is time. It's time. I'm ready for it. I've had my fill of old white guys, and I am one. I know what we're capable of, and quite frankly, I think Kamala is much better fit for modern America because, like it or
Absolutely.
not, I mean, the Republican Party very much wants to turn this back into white guy haven. They really want the white guys in charge. They want to disenfranchise everybody else. They want to turn back the clock to 1950. I was born in 49. I hit the 50s head on, and I saw what it was like. I saw how minorities suffered. I saw how women suffered, and I saw how white guys aren't the brightest guys around
No,
sometimes.
they're not. I've often said I can be prejudiced and get away with it as long as I'm prejudiced against old white guys. And those
Yeah,
motherfuckers are dumb. Not all of
yeah,
them, of course.
not all of them, of
But
course.
I wanted to bring something up. We're talking about the fundraising, and some unprecedented things are happening. Black women got on Zoom. 44,000 of them got on, raised $1.5 million. Then black
Yeah,
men came on. I don't know the numbers there, but I know they had a lot of people and they raised a lot of
uh,
money.
right.
Then yesterday, white women stepped up. They got 136,000 women on the Zoom thing. They crashed fucking Zoom and they raised over $2 million. Now, here's my problem. The white guy said, "Oh, we can do that." They got on. They had less than 2,000 people and raised $35,000. You motherfucking white guys. And I
Yeah,
can say that because I'm a white guy. We got to do better
yeah,
than this.
yep,
The women are going to carry the day, though. This is
yeah,
going to be the year of the woman going into this election, and it'll affect not only the presidency but all the down ballot shit too.
yeah. Well, think of it this way. How often do you say, honey, where's the checkbook?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't. I'm not in control in my own house. Why would I give a fuck about the country?
there
It's
we
going
go.
pretty well for me right now, so let's
Yeah.
let a woman do the job. It's about time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm first to admit my wife handles the finances in our family because she's good at it and I'm not. So she does the taxes, you know. I mean, I'm fine with that. I mean, I know where she's smarter than me, you know, which is in most things, you know. So if I support a woman in my own life and say that she's smarter in most things than I am and more capable, why wouldn't I want that in a president?
Well, I think a lot of people look at this upcoming election and they think, and I talk to a lot of people who say, well, historically, this, and this. And I said, fuck historically,
Yeah,
because what's happening now has never been done in history. So you can't compare apples and oranges to what happened in the 80s, 90s, or even the early 2000s, because we, as I say, we're in a different world. We hadn't had Barack Obama yet. The world didn't fall apart when Barack Obama, a black man, became president. In fact, we flourished.
right.
So the idea of having somebody of color in presidency makes no sense. The fact that she's a woman, it's almost about time because we've gotten to this place largely due to the control of men. So if I have this rule in my life: if I do something and it doesn't work, I do something fucking different. It's as easy as that, and that's what we're doing as a country.
No, I put a thing on TikTok a while back, a short piece that I wrote about. My mother was a Rosie the Riveter. I mean, she actually worked in a defense plant during World War II, along with, and the whole place was run by women. And the atomic bomb was built in one of them in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, essentially by women. I mean, they were the ones doing the grunt work. They were the people running the country. They were delivering the goods. They were doing supporting the troops in every way during World War II. This was a country that was in large part operated by women while the men were away. And then the men came back and you know, they all had to go home, go back to the kitchen, have kids, whatever. What J.D. Vance would want them to do, for
Right.
example. But those women never forgot, and they passed that along. They passed that along to their daughters, who passed it along to their daughters. And now we've reached the point now where women are saying, we did it once, we can do it again. Hold
Right.
my beer, watch.
Well, the thing about it is the Republicans, the JD Vances, the Donald Trumps, they're buying their own bullshit. The bullshit that
Yeah,
women are weak, that women will forget about Roe v. Wade, that they'll just comply and go along with what they're being told. That may have been the case in the 50s and the 40s. They ain't fucking doing that now. There's a lot of strong women, a lot of successful women, a lot of smart women, and they're just as smart and just as strong as the Republicans think the men are. And I think the problem is well, Kamala said we won't go back, and that's a great tagline. They do want to go back, but they're living in ancient history. They're
yeah.
not aware of what's really going on right now. You got to open your fucking eyes and see somebody like Kamala who's going to run right over the top of Donald Trump, and they don't think she can. They're amazed by what's going on, but I think, well, she's just a woman. Well, just fucking watch.
She's a vital woman. She's a woman that can get up and down a ramp without, you know, help. She's a woman who can speak extemporaneously and not become a blithering idiot. She's a person who can call Donald Trump out lie for lie for lie for lie in a debate, which Joe was not able to do because people who watched that debate with an open mind realized that Joe actually won.
Yeah.
because everything Joe said was true. He may have misspoken here and there and so forth, but or had a hard time coming up with the words. But Trump was simply lying. Everything he said was a lie.
And
That's not a debate. You cannot debate a liar.
and unfortunately, at least with the Republicans, they see what happened there. And they saw that Donald Trump was loud. He was fairly quick with the retorts, regardless of if they were real or truthful or not, didn't make a difference. He gave the perception of being strong. Joe gave the perception of being weak. It's like back with the Kennedy Nixon debates.
Right.
On TV, they said Kennedy won. On radio, they said Nixon won. And it was because
Yeah.
Nixon didn't look as good as Kennedy, and Nixon was sweating, looked nervous. And it's all about perception. And you can't really do that, but you have to deal with what you have. Now, Donald Trump is the one that's going to appear weak. And that's all he had. He has no substance. So when Kamala comes into a debate, she's strong and smart. She'll roll over the top of him.
Yeah. And then we get things like, we see pictures of him with the bandage on his ear, right? And then we see him out playing golf, no bandage,
No
no
cut,
wound,
no
nothing,
bruises, nothing.
nothing there. But then he goes out again, he's got the bandage back on. I mean, do they not understand that media is omniscient now, that we see everything? Apparently they don't. Apparently
Right.
they don't.
So what do you think will happen on September 10th? She will be the nominee by then. I don't care what anybody says. She's going to be the nominee. If there was somebody going to challenge her, they would have challenged her by now. In fact, anybody that could have been a challenger now endorsed her. And I think Joe
Right.
kind of set that up in advance too. Look, we got to win. Your time will come. You got to get behind Kamala. And they did. The Gavin Newsoms, all these other people. But if that debate ever happens, and I'm not sure it will, but Donald Trump's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. He's got to do something. He's losing every day he gets up. He's got to try to pull something out. And we know that Donald Trump thinks he's a genius, that he can pull things out. So we might get lucky and he might show up to a debate.
I'm going to throw this out just for the hell of it, because I've stopped trying to prognosticate because things are moving too fast.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had a friend who predicted it, or someone she knew predicted that Joe was actually going to step down and endorse Kamala. But I didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming. But the thing I see coming is that I think he will try his best to weasel out, but can he? If she's who I think she is, she's going to taunt the hell out of him.
Right. And that's what she needs to do. She needs to constantly attack and taunt.
Yeah, because we know that looking weak is something that he cannot stand.
No.
He has to think that people see him as strong and see him, because he wants to join the ranks of Kim Jong-un and Putin and Erdogan and these. He wants the respect of those guys. He's like a mafia guy. He wants the other dons to look at him and say, he's the big boss kind of thing. That's what he wants. He doesn't really understand government. He doesn't really understand what a president is for or what the job actually entails. He really doesn't understand that. He thinks it's a guy who gets to say whatever he wants and people have to do it and snap to attention and so forth. That's his idea of the president. It's not about doing anything for everybody. It's about transactional. You do stuff for people who can help you. That's what he sees. So if she taunts him and taunts him and taunts him, he has to show up, or else he looks weak, and he cannot abide that.
We know that Benjamin Netanyahu was in town to speak to Congress. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. I think he's a war criminal. I think the moment he's taken out of office, he's going to be put in jail. That's the kind of human he is. He's kind of Israel's Donald Trump. But what I found interesting is after that speech, he met with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And when there was a report on that meeting, they sent out Kamala Harris, no doubt to make her look presidential. And it fucking worked. She was clear on top of it. She stated what she believed, the two-state solution. She asked for the war to stop, so ceasefire. Everybody's saying, ask for a ceasefire. Well, Kamala did it. And I have a feeling she's fortunate to have Joe Biden in this mix because, as I
Right.
said, Joe Biden's in a spot where he has nothing to lose. I
Right.
wouldn't be surprised if he sat down with Netanyahu and says, "Listen, motherfucker, I'm on the way out. We need this done soon, or this is going to get unpleasant for you. And guess what? I'm not running again, and Kamala won't be blamed for it. So you better get on the fucking bicycle and get this motherfucking thing done."
Right. And what did he get from Trump? He goes to see Trump, and then Trump comes out and says, I told him to end it as quickly as possible, possibly because he's losing the PR war. He doesn't give a shit about people dying on either side
No,
or
no.
anything else. It's the metrics, it's the PR. That's what he told him. End it as quickly, which means basically bomb the shit out of them. That's what
Right.
he's telling Netanyahu. Be as brutal as you want, just get it done.
Well,
And
and that's always been the situation that I'd never understood. We're mad at Joe Biden because he's not doing the right stuff. Well, Donald Trump is worse.
yeah,
That's your option. I think what they're going to do is try to set this up to make Kamala the hero, or at least deliver the right message. If that war ends before the election, oh, that's fucking serious trouble. I mean, I'll guarantee you, Donald Trump didn't say stop it. He said
no,
he did. He pulled a Ronald Reagan, and said stop it after I get in office.
yeah. And what he basically said was, power through, essentially.
Yeah,
Um, no, we know that Trump, again, if Trump were to be reelected, then he would withdraw all help to Ukraine
yeah,
and give Ukraine to Russia. I don't know why people haven't followed up on this. I mean, he spoke to the media and said that he and Putin talked about it before Putin invaded Ukraine. That it was his dream. We talked about it. He said. So he was in on that. He didn't warn NATO about what was happening. He was in on the invasion. He okayed the invasion of Ukraine to Putin. He admitted that. I mean, obviously, he didn't mean to, but he did.
right.
The other thing he will do is hand Taiwan over to China.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, as much as he talks against China, but I saw one place. Well, this has been a long time ago, where he actually told Xi, "I'm going to have to talk rough about you, but don't pay any attention to it.
right.
It's just for the cameras." He said that.
Yeah,
People forget that stuff. He will give Taiwan to mainland China. He will, give them the wink. Go ahead and do what you want. We're not going to interfere. The world will be, in large part, turned over. Uh, we will no longer block these despots. We will, in fact, be in collusion with them. Should Donald Trump or any Republican, because the House and the Senate are just as much in it as Trump is. They're just as much under the sway of the corporations, which are the big masters
right,
worldwide.
right,
I mean, Putin, G, all of these people, they're just middle players now.
right. I talked to somebody who is a self-proclaimed Republican but does not like Trump. And what I gather from these people are um, misinformed.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Ukraine war, and this person said to me, "Well, I think we should just get out of there. Let Russia do whatever they're going to do. That's not our business. We shouldn't be there." And I looked at him. I said, "You really think that's true?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "So, if we let Russia take over Ukraine, they've said as much as that they will keep going. Now they go into Poland, a NATO country, and try to take that over. Now the 30 NATO countries go after Russia. Russia is going to get their ass kicked, and now they're going to go to the nuclear wars because that's all they have. We have a world war and a nuclear war. Is that what you're suggesting you prefer as opposed to helping Ukraine?" Well, I didn't think about that. That's not for sure. I go, no, that's fucking for sure. That's
It is
how
for
it will
sure.
go down. That's how it will go down. NATO's not going to stand aside and let Poland or any other NATO country get run over. It's going
No,
to be a fucking all-out war. Is that what you're for? An all-out war? I said, you got to think beyond the end of your nose. We can't be an isolationist country when we're a country that's this big and this powerful. We've got to be a police officer in order to save the fucking world.
That's it. And no man is an island, no country is an island because um, it's all interrelated now. Okay, we could pull back within our borders. That's where we were before World War II, and it took Pearl Harbor to get us out of it. We weren't going to go against Hitler. We were going to let Hitler take over France and take over Great Britain and solidify Europe into this gigantic. It would have been Hitler in Europe, Stalin in Russia, and us over here, and eventually, and then Japan too, their empire in the Far East. So there would have been these big four that eventually would have, of course, uh, have gone against each other anyway. But it's fortunate that we did go into World War II and we were able to defeat both Japan and Germany. We took out those threats anyway, and then we're able to concentrate on détente basically with Russia over time. But it's a big world, and we cannot ever afford to be isolated again. That's pure insanity.
Well, and that's what people have to understand. When you look at the big picture in World War II, we didn't just save ourselves. We literally
Right?
saved the world. Because
We
imagine
did.
if everything would have been taken over by Hitler in Europe and we'd be here and then China and all this stuff, these evil powers would eventually take and put the crosshairs on us. They want
Uh,
everything. And we would have been
exactly.
alone. We would have been an island by virtue of us staying isolated. That's why it's important that we go out there and kick some bullies' ass. We have the strength and the power, and we should use it and allow other people to be free too, not only because it's a nice thing to do, but because it saves us in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, you can speculate all you want. I assume that we don't enter World War II. I mean, we know that Hitler went east into Poland, but he went west into Belgium and France and so forth. He didn't have to worry about Spain because he had Franco, a fascist power there already.
Right,
He
right,
didn't have to worry about Italy because he had fascist in power there. All they had to do was come together. They just wanted their piece of the pie. But for Europe would have been easily consolidated, including Great Britain, under the Nazi umbrella, and then that they would have moved east, and probably they were already aligned with Japan. They would have both gone after Russia, and then you have the whole world against us,
right.
and that would have been a scary proposition.
And if that would have happened in the 40s, we would have never had the Beatles. So fuck them.
There you go.
No, and this is the problem with Republicans. They're very isolationist, and
Yeah,
it's all about what do I get.
right.
And when you're in a position like America is, or like Joe Biden is, they understand that there is a bigger picture, and you've got to help other people to help yourself. And like I was very happy to see Kamala come out when she gave one of her speeches and she talked about building the middle class out, exactly what Joe Biden has done. Um, because we know now it is effective and it does work for our economy. Just look at it. The GDP came out at 2.8%, which was unexpected, and we're growing at an incredible rate, bigger than any other country in the world. Um, Joe gets it. Joe's not tainted by wealthy people to get him to do otherwise. And it looks like Kamala is ready to go along with it. We're going to see Joe Biden with a fire under her ass.
Right, and I'm looking forward to a new generation of Democrats running things.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to uh, I don't even want the current leadership in the Senate or the House. I want
No,
new people in there too. I want them to see that it's time to step down and do that. I mean,
I
Nancy
agree.
stepped back, but I want somebody. I want a Jamie Raskin or somebody running things in the House, and I want somebody, Buttigieg or somebody in the Senate. I mean, get him in there. Somebody who's ready for a new generation because with Obama came in the midst of a great recession. Remember that?
Right.
And he had to bring the country back from a recession. And then he does that, and then Trump takes over, and for the first 2 years, that's the Obama influence. The first 2 years of the Trump presidency is all Obama. That's the Obama economy. It has nothing to do with Trump,
No.
right? He passes this gigantic inflationary tax cut for billionaires and corporations, and then the pandemic hits, and the whole economy goes in the toilet. So Joe once again has to bring it all back. But we've never yet see. This is the problem with electing Republicans. You have 2 years of, I mean, 2 terms of Democrats putting things in order, and then you have Republicans destroying it, and the next Democrat has to spend the time. And we never get to the point where we can do the Roosevelt thing and spread the wealth to everybody. We've always had to concentrate on getting um, the corporate side flourishing again, but it doesn't get down to the people. Now we need 2 terms of Democrats who will spread it out. Capitalism in itself is not sustainable. We have to become democratic socialists. That's what has to happen. I don't know if you know this or not. I just saw this the other day, and this was specifically in Atlanta, but I am guaranteeing you this is going to be the same in every major metropolitan area across the country, either now or in the immediate future. 19% of the homes that used to have would have been called starter homes, where the young people would go out, just like my wife and I did, and buy an older home and fix it up, and then move on to another. All of those homes have now been bought up by 3 corporations that didn't exist 3 years ago in the Atlanta area. And that's 19%, call it 20% of the available housing has been bought up by corporations that are renting those. They will never sell them. They rent them, and they raise the rent, not only for those, but for everything else.
Right.
So that what they are essentially doing is putting home ownership out of reach for a goodly portion of the population, the young people that would have bought those homes and would have sustained them. Now they will become rental properties. They will probably fall into disrepair. They'll become slums in what could have been prosperous neighborhoods and so forth. And this is going to happen all across the country. And what they're looking for, because home ownership is the greatest way to increase inherited wealth. That's where it comes from property. You inherit your parents' house or your grandparents' house or whatever. That has been a historic way that people rise from the lower class to the middle class, is through home ownership. That's why it was a big deal after World War II that the GI Bill focused on that, and why we had such a gigantic upsurge in the economy. That was part of it. And spurring small business and so forth was part of it too. That was government investment in the working class, and it worked. And it worked for a generation until Ronald Reagan came along and destroyed it. And we haven't had sustained democratic effort. They always have to fix the economy after Republicans screw it up before they can move again in the area of the way Roosevelt did in spreading out the wealth to everybody. That's what we need.
And actually, by Joe stepping aside, that put us in a better position to do that. Joe was going to only go 4 years. He hands it off to Kamala. Now Kamala can run 2 terms. She can go over the next 4 years, and presumably everything she does with the middle class is going to improve the economy and everybody's lives. It's going to be much easier as an incumbent to win again for 4 more years. And she's young enough to do it. So we're in a good position right now, maybe the best position we've been in to sustain the Democratic control.
I am hugely optimistic. Yes.
Yeah. And you weren't always optimistic.
No, I was not. I was starting to feel like, where are we going to move to?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we'll just, I've had some people in Nova Scotia and Ireland say, listen, man, if it goes south, you can move here.
Yeah, one of the guys that I've become friends with, who is now, talks to me on my TikTok, but he found me through this
Yeah,
podcast. He's in Canada. Come on up if you need to. This is I'm very optimistic, not
I
only
am
for
too.
not only for 2 terms of Kamala, but perhaps 2 terms of her vice president. We
Right.
could do it. That is what it will take to turn the country back into the engine that it was when I was born in 1950. It was progress from there on until 1980, and then it went to shit.
Well, and the time has come, and people have been tired. I think people are tired of the chaos, the constant fighting. They're tired of not getting served like politicians should. And I've said, I've always been optimistic. I'm just happy now that people have finally seen my brilliance and are optimistic now too.
Yes,
but
exactly.
but I think we are at a turning point. I do believe in destiny. We've gone through what we've gone through, and now we're coming into the light of day. I really believe that after November.
I do too, and I'm very happy that we have so many capable women who will be able to figure into it. I look forward to not only Kamala Harris as president, but I look for Elizabeth Warren leading the Senate. I look for Katie Porter leading the House. I look for Amy Klobuchar at the Justice Department,
Yeah,
perhaps, or
right.
maybe even on the Supreme Court eventually. There are so very many capable women who've been honing their skills, and they are ready. And this is the opportunity. And us old white guys have to just suck it up and go with the winners for a change.
I'm ready to just lay back and let the women lead and suck it up, mainly because my wife told me I have to.
Yeah, mine too.
But even
Yeah.
beyond that, it seems to be working out well. So I'll stick with that. Ed, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. Thanks for coming on. I was anxious to hear with all that went on since we last talked. It's always good to get your perspective and your wisdom and your Southern stories. Now, since we're wrapping it up, we need to remind folks where they can find you on TikTok and YouTube.
At Holler Troll on TikTok, and you can also Reelin in the Years, REALIN apostrophe in the years, like reeling in the years, but with an A instead of an E.
You, you,
That
de-
done.
you definitely need to check out Ed. Ed, what he does has some political bent to it too, but he's kind of a storyteller. It's entertaining as hell, so you got to check it out. I just
Yeah,
said that. You got to
yeah,
do it.
I tried something new. I made an AI creation with music using Alicia Keys' "Girl on Fire"
Oh yeah.
um, with Kamala's Catwoman that I like.
That that
I've been playing around. She's saying it's Catwoman, and
that
she's kicking this AI creation of Trump that worked out pretty well. It's
the
kind of fun to play with,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, that girl is on fire is a perfect song for Kamala at this point. I did a weak attempt at a meme, and I basically had a picture of Joe and it says, "So good, he only needed 4 years."
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
he's accomplished more in 4 years than a lot of presidents accomplished in 8 years. So we have to pay homage and respect to Joe Biden. He's done everything for this country, and he sacrificed for himself. We've got to respect that.
Right, absolutely. He won me over. I was not a centrist, and I resisted, but I'm glad I did, of course, vote for him
Yeah.
eventually because he was the candidate. But I was pleasantly surprised when he was so open to doing everything that he did that I agreed with. So
Yeah.
I was very, very pleased, and I will consider the centrist from
Well,
now on.
he read the room. He saw these
Yeah.
radical right people, and he knew he had to balance it out. So he had to go a little further left, and he did. He was smart, and it's working out to his benefit. Ed, thanks for coming in. Check out at Holler Troll, HOLLERTROLL. That's on TikTok. Reelin in the Years on YouTube, REALIN years.
Apostrophe. Yeah.
Apostrophe. Don't forget the apostrophe. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.